Hey everyone, this is Ryan King and welcome to another Blender furniture modeling tutorial. In this tutorial, we're going to be making this fancy lamp in Blender. And we're going to be doing this tutorial in Cycles Render, so I would highly suggest that you do that. And if you'd like to download the project files for this, they're going to be available on my Gumroad and Patreon. The links will be in the video description. Now I'm going to be using two resources online to create this. I'm going to be using this HDRI to help us with the lighting. This is a free HDRI on HDRI Haven. So if you want to download the same one that I'm using, the link will be in the video description. And then to make the fabric on the lamp, I'm going to be using this Fabric 036 on cc0textures.com. So the links will be in the video description for this again. And I'm just going to be downloading the 2K version. And then also on the HDRI, I'm just going to be downloading the 1K version. Also in the video description, I'm going to provide this image that we're going to be adding in as a background image. And this will help us with modeling to kind of model all these little detailed parts right here. Now, you totally don't need to use this if you don't want to. You can go ahead and model it however you want. But just to help us model it a little bit better, I am going to be providing a link to this in the video description, so you can go ahead and download that and throw it into your scene if you'd like to as well. Okay, let's go ahead and get started in Blender. All right, and here we are in Blender now. I do have my screencast keys right here so that you can see what buttons I'm pressing if you want to do that. The first thing that I'm going to do is select everything with A and delete it. So I'm going to press X and delete. Sorry, default cube, I deleted you once again. So let's go ahead and add in that background image now. So I'm going to press Shift A and I'm going to go over here to the image, and then I'm going to use the background. And here is the lamp reference image that I'm going to be using. Again, you totally don't have to use this if you don't want to, but it will help to make the modeling a little more accurate to my one. So if you want to, you can totally add this in. So I'm going to just click on this, and then I'm going to press N to open up this side panel here. And you can see that it says align to view. I don't want it to do this because I want it to just be flat. So I'm going to uncheck this and then click on load background image. So you can see that now it's just placed right down there. I'm going to press 1 on the number pad to jump to front view, and then to rotate this up, I'm going to press R to rotate, X on the X-axis, and then I'll just type in 90 so that it will bring it up by 90 degrees, and then I'll hit enter. Now you can see it's up like this. Now I'm going to press G and move it over, just move it up right here. And then I'll just zoom in here and try to get it right in the center. You can kind of use these grids here to get an idea. Just try to put it in the center and just on the grid floor, just like that. Okay, now I actually don't really want to see it when I'm moving around. I only want to see it when I'm in the orthographic views, the front and side views. So what I'm going to do is click over here on this button. And then right here, if I just make this a little bit bigger, you can see it says only axis aligned. If I click on that, then when I move out here, you can't see it. So you can still see the outline, just that you remember that it's there, but you can't see the image unless you're in front or side view. All right, so now we can start modeling. So if your 3D cursor has moved out of the center, you can press Shift C and that'll bring it right back into the center there. So let's press Shift A, and I'm going to search for a circle. Just add a circle in here, and then on the circle settings right here, the vertices, I'm just going to change this to like 8 and then close this. And then we can tab into edit mode, press S and scale this down. So I'm going to press E to extrude this up, and then I'm going to click with my middle mouse wheel as I'm pulling up, and that'll align it to the Z axis and just bring it up however long I want. And then click to place it. Zoom in here, I'll press E, S, bring it down a bit, and then I can press G to grab, and then Z on the Z axis and bring it up. Okay, and then E, click with my middle mouse wheel again, bring it up, and then E and click again. So this is a pretty repetitive. So I'm just going to be modeling this, basically pressing E and S and just making the shape of it. So let's just go ahead and do this. Scale that down. Of course, if you want to be more unique and have your result not look exactly like the tutorial, like mine, then you can definitely make this look however you want. You could definitely look up reference images too of lamps to get it how you want. And then also if you want to like move up, I'm holding down Shift and then clicking with my middle mouse button. And that way I don't come out of this view. So Shift, click and move up, and then zooming in with the middle mouse button or middle mouse wheel. And then also, if you kind of want to see the inside of it, you can press Z and move your mouse over to go into wireframe, and then I can see what's inside it here. Now, let's say I want to add a loop cut right in here. To do this, I can press Control R and then click, and then just click again to place it, and then I can press S and bring it up a little bit. I can hold down Alt and right click to select that loop right there, and then press E, and just keep on going. And don't worry if it's all blocky, you can see this is all chunky. We're going to add a subdivision surface modifier on this later to smooth it out. So let's just keep going here. I don't really know what to say at this point because I don't want to say every single movement I'm doing because that would be pretty repetitive. E, and then S, E, middle mouse button, S. Okay. Okay, got a little farther to go. Extrude this up again. I do enjoy modeling. I definitely enjoy it. It's fun. Unless it's like a super complicated mesh and it's like really hard to get it all right. But something like this, I think it's pretty fun. Okay, extrude this. And then this one right here, because this is just really long, we don't need to add like a bunch of like loop cuts right in there. We can just extrude this really big, and we can have a big gap there, and it doesn't really matter because we'll be adding a subsurf on this, and then we'll add loop cuts later to sharpen up the areas that we want to sharpen up. Extrude this up again, just scale it down a little bit. Okay, I want to add a loop cut in here again, so I'll press Control R. And then I clicked and placed it and then just scale it down. Another way you can just select these are if you're in wireframe mode like I am here, I can press B and just box select that, and then E, just keep on scaling it. E and S, just going to bring this down. Now this area, I want this to be a separate object because I want the material to be different. So I'll just press Z, move out of wireframe, and then press F to fill that. Now you can see the shading might look a little bit weird, and I think that's because we need to recalculate the normals. So to recalculate the normals, I'll tab into edit mode, and then I can press A couple of times to make sure everything is selected. And then the shortcut key to recalculating the normals is Shift N. And there you can see now the shading issues. Now that looks a lot better. Before the shading issues, it looks a little bit weird here. And basically, the mesh is kind of flipped, like it's inside out. So when you press Shift N and recalculate the normals, it kind of flips it around. Okay, so this is looking pretty good here. It's looking pretty fancy, but it's really blocky. You can obviously see that. I'm sure you've noticed that. So to smooth this out, I'm going to add a subdivision surface modifier. So click over here on the wrench. That'll go to the modifiers tab, and then I'll click on add modifier. And I'm just going to add a subdivision surface. Now you can see it's a lot smoother. I want to make these both up to maybe 2 or maybe even 3. I think 2 is okay though. And then I'll just shade this smooth. You can go object, shade smooth right there. Okay, so it's looking pretty good, but you can see that a lot of this, it's very vague. That's because the subdivision surface modifier is smoothing it out. If I tab into edit mode here, you can see it just kind of smooths everything out. So we're going to need to add loop cuts to define where we want those edges to be sharp. So I can press Control R and click on areas, and basically this entire thing, I'm just going to be adding tons of loop cuts. So I'm pressing Control R, I move over to where I want to add the loop cut, and then I click and then move it, slide it around, and then click again to place it. So I'm just going to be doing that for pretty much the entire thing, just going along here. Anywhere where I want it to be sharper, I can do that. So this I want to be sharper. I want this to be sharper. So I'll add one up here, one down here. I want this to be sharp. Also, if you want to add multiple loop cuts, when you press Control R, you can scroll with your middle mouse wheel, and that'll add multiple loop cuts. So if you want to do that, that's something you can do. Most of the time though, I'm just going to be adding one here. I want to add some in here though, to sharpen this up. And if you're more of a beginner to modeling and you feel like I'm going really fast, like I'm just adding loop cuts really quickly, once you keep practicing, if you keep on practicing modeling, it'll be really quick. You'll kind of learn the shortcut keys, and then you'll just be modeling really quickly. So keep on practicing, you'll get better at it. Okay, and then I want to add one here, so I'll press Control R. Okay, now this, I actually don't want to add loop cuts. This is a spot where I specifically don't want to, because let me just show you what it would look like if I did add loop cuts. it would look like this. Now, you could, if you liked that, you could do that, but I don't like that because, as you can see here, I want this to be very smooth. So this is actually a spot where I'm not going to add loop cuts. I'm just going to leave it smooth right there. But then like up here, I'll add some loop cuts to sharpen up that edge. All right, that's looking way nicer. Now, right here, we need to fill this in because it's empty right here. So I'll tab into edit mode. I'm going to hold down Alt and then right click on this loop to select it. Now I use the right click select in the Blender settings. I have right click select set up, but left click select is on default. So if you're using the left click select, you're going to need to Alt and left click to select the loop, but I use right click select. So I hold down Alt and click on the right one. Okay, so let's press E, S, bring it down. And then we can press F and that'll fill that face there. And then I do want to sharpen this up right here. So I'll press Control R and sharpen that up. Okay, sweet. This is looking really good. Now we should have saved our file already, but I forgot to. Let's go ahead and save that. So I'll go File right here and click on Save As. And then I'm just going to save this. I'm just going to make a name right behind me. I'll just call it Lamp Tutorial. Okay, just save that somewhere on your computer. Okay, the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to be modeling the little kind of stem area right before it goes into the light bulb. So we're going to be modeling this. So this is really easy to do. And we actually have, we can actually use parts from our other model. So let's tab into edit mode. I'm going to Alt and click on this. And remember, whatever key is your main key to select, that's the key on your mouse that you're going to use. So I do right click select, so I'm going to Alt and right click to select that. Let's press Shift D and then Z and move this up. And now I want this to be a separate object. So what I can do is just make sure that area is selected, and then I'll press P and then I'll click on separate. So it says separate right here. I'll click on selection. Now it's only going to separate what's selected into a different object. So now if I tab back into object mode, select this object and tab into edit mode, you can now see that it's its own object. Okay, now let's scale it down a little bit. And then I will press G and Z, bring it up a little bit, something like that. And then I'll press E, extrude it down. And then we're going to need to add a lot of loop cuts here. Something that I can do actually is this right here. I can actually delete the face because it's going into the other object. So I'll press X and then click on faces. And there we go. Now the face is deleted and we don't need to add a loop cut there. Something that we can do right here is Alt, click on this loop, and then press Control B. Control B adds a bevel. And then if I want to add more loops, I can scroll my mouse wheel up and that'll add more loops. I'm just going to add maybe 4 and then just click to place that. And that's a cool way to add more loop cuts and sharpen up that edge. All right, now you can see here that the shading is messed up again. The dark area is right here, and then the dark area is over here. So I need to select everything, press Shift N, and that'll recalculate the normals. Now, one thing that I forgot on this modeling, you can see that if I look at my background image, it's a lot smaller than my actual model. And this is again because the subsurface modifier smooths it out, and so it kind of pulls the mesh in a little bit. You can see there's some empty space there. So what I can do really quick to just make it bigger if you want to, is you can select the whole thing and then press S to scale, but then press Shift Z. And what Shift Z does is it will scale it on every axis except the Z axis. So it'll scale it on the Y and the X axis, but not the Z axis. And you can see what it's doing here. If I just scale it normally, it's scaling it up as well as out. But if I press S, Shift Z, there you can see now it's only doing X and Y. So we'll just do that, but just do it by a little tiny amount. There you go. Now it's perfectly aligned up and that looks nicer. Okay, let's go back to this object. I'll tab into edit mode here. Now this is where the light bulb is going to be going in. So I want there to be just a little hole right here so that the light bulb can kind of sit in it. You're not really going to notice it that much, but I thought I might as well add it. So I will press 3, not on the number pad, but your normal 3, or you can click on this and that'll go to the face select mode. I will click on this and then I'll press I, and I is going to inset that face. So it's going to put a face inside another face. So I'll just bring that down and then I'll press E and extrude it in like that. And then I can press Control R and just add some loop cuts and sharpen that up. Okay, there we go. That looks good. All right, so now let's go ahead and model the light bulb. I'm just going to go File and save this again. So to make the light bulb, we can actually use more parts from our other models, just like we did this. So I'm going to tab into edit mode, click on this or press 1 to go to the vertex select to select vertices. Then I'll Alt click on this loop to select all of it. And then once again, I'll press Shift D to duplicate, Z on the Z axis, bring it up. And then just with this selected, I can press P and separate by selection. And there we go. Now it's its own object. Okay, so let's tab into edit mode here. And I'm going to go to front view with 1 on the number pad. And then I will scale this up a bit. And then I can press E, hold down with my middle mouse wheel, and then S, and just making a basic light bulb shape. I'm not too worried about it looking exactly like a light bulb. You can definitely grab a reference image, but it's like gonna be really hard to see. So I'll extrude that out, scale it down, and then this right here, press F to fill the face. And then I'm going to Alt click on this loop. If you want to edge slide a loop, you can double tap on G and then that'll slide the loop on that edge. I'll press S and scale this up a little bit. I just want to make the light bulb a little bit rounder. Okay, and then I can go Object, Shade Smooth, and then once again, I don't know why it does this, but for some reason the normals continue to be the wrong way, so they're flipped around. So I need to tap into edit mode, select all these, and then press Shift N. Now I want to make this stem a little bit smaller, so I'll tab into edit mode. I can press Z and move my mouse over to go into wireframe, and then just A to deselect everything, B and box select this, and then S to make it just a little bit smaller. Okay, that's better. All right, so we are really getting somewhere. This is really starting to look like a lamp. We still need to add the shade, of course. I'm just going to save this again. Okay, next I want to make that little clicker thing that you click to turn on the lamp. Right here in the finished model, you can see this is it right here. So we're just going to be modeling this. This is really easy to model. So I will, again, I want to do that same thing where I just take apart from the mesh and make it separate. So I'm going to tap into edit mode, Alt, click on a loop, Shift D, bring it up. Then I'll press P to separate by selection, and then just grab this loop. Let's press 1 to go to front view. I can press G to move this and just bring it down here. And then I want to rotate it because right now it's going up. We need to rotate it sideways. So I'll press R. And you can see that when I press R here, it's rotating really awkwardly. And that's because the origin point is way down there. So it's rotating really weirdly. So to fix this, I'm going to go to Object right here with the circle selected. I'm going to go Set Origin, and then I'm going to select Origin to Geometry, and that'll make the center of the origin of the object to where the geometry is. So now you can see that little orange dot is right there. So now if I press R to rotate, it's rotating properly. So I'm going to type in 90 to rotate it by 90 degrees, and then press Enter. Okay, let's scale this down. I'll press G, move it inside this. And then if I tap into edit mode, I can't see it, but I'll just press E, just extrude that out. I'll click with my middle mouse wheel and pull over this way, and that'll bring it on the X-axis. And then this is a little too thick, so I'm going to press A to select the whole thing and S just to scale it down. Okay, and then I want to scale it out a bit more, so I'll press S and X, bring it up. And then this is too far, so I'll press Z to go into wireframe, just box select this area, and G, pull it over a bit. Okay, so our reference image is getting pretty low quality here, but I know what it looks like. So press E, S, move it over, and then E, S, and then we can just fill that face. Oh, okay. Now I need to add some loop cuts, so I'll press Ctrl R to sharpen this up. And there we go. And now it's kind of blocky, so I'll go Object, Shade Smooth. Okay, there we go. That's looking really nice. All right, so we're really getting there now. This is really starting to look like a lamp. The next thing that I'm going to do is model these little metal wire kind of things that are coming up, and they kind of give kind of a safety area for the light bulb. And then those metal pieces are also going to help to hold up the lamp shade. You can see this is what they look like in my model, so that's what we're going to be modeling next. Okay, so make sure that your 3D cursor again is in the very center with Shift C, then I'll press Shift A, and I'm going to add a plane. I'll press G, Z, and just bring the plane up. And then I'm going to tab into edit mode, make sure the origin point is still in the center there, because that's really important. And then I'll press S, scale it down, just scale it really small. And then I'll press G, click with my middle mouse, just bring it over. And then we can also scale it down a little bit like this. Okay, so now why this is so important that the origin point is in the center is because I'm going to be adding a mirror modifier to mirror it to the other side. So I'll click on add modifier. Let's add the mirror. Now you can see it's mirrored to the other side. I'm going to tab into edit mode now and just click on this, shift click on this so that we have those two vertices selected. I'm going to go to front view and then I'll start to extrude this out. So I'll press E and click, and just bring that up. Now you might be wondering why I'm doing this, because it doesn't have any thickness. What I'm going to do is add modifier, the solidify modifier. Okay, I want to bring this so it goes in instead of out. Now if this is like moving way too violently, you can hold down shift, and then holding down shift, what that does is it makes the movements less sensitive. Okay, there we go. I'm going to tab in edit mode, scale this down a bit because it's too big right now, and then also make the thickness smaller. Okay, now to make this actually look like kind of thick metal wire thing, I'm going to add another modifier and add the subdivision surface. And then down here on the subdivision surface, I'm going to turn these up to like 2, and then I will shade that smooth. And then you can see right here, it kind of starts to go around. We need to add a loop cut right here. So I'll press Ctrl R, add a loop cut there. All right, that's looking a lot better. So I'll go back to front view, tab into edit mode, and then let me just select these two right here. And I'll just keep extruding that out. So the shape, it really depends. I don't really know. Probably the lamps, a lot of lamps are probably different. So just make the shape something that looks nice to you. Okay, there we go. That's pretty good. I like how that looks. One more thing though, this right here needs to be up a little bit more. So what I'm doing is I'm pressing Z to go into wireframe, and then I can just A to deselect everything, B and just box select, and then I can just move these around with G. There we go. Now there's two of them on this side and this side. So what I'm going to do is press Shift D and then right click so that it hops back to its position. And then I'll press R, Z, and then just type in 90 and then click. All right, so now let's make that little top part on the lamp. I'm actually going to use this light bulb because it looks pretty much the same, so we don't really need to remodel this. So I'm just going to click on this light bulb, Shift D, Z, and just bring it up and then scale it way down. And you can see it's scaling weirdly because, again, the origin point is way down there. So I can just go Object, Set Origin, Origin to Geometry, and then that'll scale a lot better now. So I'll bring this up. And then if you want to change the shape of this a little bit, you definitely could. So I'm going to tab into edit mode and just change the shape a little bit. I think I want to make it a little bit stubbier. Now this bottom area right here, we're going to extrude that out. So go into edit mode and go to front view. I'm going to box select this, G and Z, bring it down. Okay. And then I can E, S, and then F to fill that. And then I want to sharpen this up just a little bit. So I'll press Ctrl R, add a loop cut here, and then Ctrl R, add a loop cut right there. So now let's go ahead and make these things right here. So these and these, this is kind of like a frame to hold up the cloth. So I'll press Shift A, Shift C, make sure it's in the center here, and then Shift A. We're going to add another circle, and you can see that the circle settings, it's already set to 8, so that's good. G and Z, and just bring it up, scale it up a little bit, and then I'll tab into edit mode and press E, just bring that down, and then it's basically the same thing except a little bit bigger. So I'll press Shift D with this whole thing selected, Shift D, click with my middle mouse wheel, bring it down, and then S, just make it a little bit bigger, and then S, and we can click Shift Z so that, again, it's not scaled up and down, it's just scaled sideways. just scale that up. There we go. Now we need to give this some thickness. So I'll go add modifier and add once again the solidify modifier. We'll just bring the thickness up a little bit, and then it's all chunky, so I need to add a subdivision surface modifier. I'll turn this up to actually something like 3 or even 4 if you want to make it really smooth. And then I'll just shade this object smooth. And then it's kind of rounded right now, and I want to sharpen that up so that it's more square. You can see on my model here, it's nice and square. So I will Control R, click on this and bring it up, and then Control R and bring that down. There, now it's a nice square. I'll do the same thing here. So add loop cuts right there. Okay, so now let's actually go ahead and do the cloth. Actually, you can see the subsurf modifier brought it in a little bit, so let me just scale this out again. So select everything in edit mode, S, Shift Z, and then bring it up a bit. Okay, so now let's go ahead and model the cloth that's going from here to here. And then after that, we'll add those other frame pieces. So again, I can use the circle from here. So I'll tab into edit mode, click on this one, Shift D, bring it down, and then press P by selection. Now, this object, if I just click on it, I don't want it to have the solidify, so on the solidify modifier right here, I'll press the X button to get rid of it, but I still want the subsurf. So let's tab into edit mode. I want to scale it down a little bit smaller, and then GZ, bring it up, so that way it's inside this object, and then I'll extrude it down, and scale it up a little bit, and just extrude it and scale it until it goes right into the other frame. Okay, that's good. We'll shade that smooth. I think I'll actually add another loop cut and just scale this down a little bit. But that's looking really good. Okay, let's go ahead and do those other frames on the sides here. So I want the side frames to be very similar to this one. So I'll tab into edit mode, Alt, click on this loop, and then Shift D, bring it down. And then I'll press P and separate by selection. Now this is going up and down, but I want to rotate it so that it's going sideways. So I'll tab into edit mode, select it, and then press R, X90. There we go. I'll press 3 on the number pad. Oh, actually 1 on the number pad to go to side view. Just bring this up right in here. And then if I extrude it, you can see there it is. If for some reason this thickness is like over here, that's because it's like a negative value. So just change it over to going on the other side. Okay, so let's press E and just extrude this all the way down, and then add a loop cut right here by pressing Control R just to sharpen that up. And then also right here too, you can see it's kind of curving in. So I'll press Control R, add another loop cut, and then I can just go shade smooth. Okay, so now we've made one, so we don't have to make all the others. We can just mirror it. So I'm gonna go add modifier, add a mirror, and there we go. There's the second one. Now you can see right in here, actually, this is a little bit too long. So the thickness here, I'm just gonna make that a little bit less so that it goes in there. And then on the inside here, again, it looks like this is a tiny bit too far out. So I'll just bring the thickness in just a tiny bit. Okay, so now that's mirrored to both of these sides, but we want to mirror it to the other sides as well. So the easiest way that I've found to do this is just to press Shift D, right click so it jumps back to its original position, R to rotate, and then Z, and just type in 90 and then enter, and there we go. All right, so we're almost done modeling this, but if this were a lamp in real life, then this would happen. It would just fall off of the lamp, the shade would just fall off of the lamp and just keep on falling forever. And why this would happen is because we don't have anything connecting these two together. So we're just going to add some bits right here and right here to connect that on. Also, the reference image, I don't really need to use this anymore, so you can keep it on there if you want, but I'm just going to select the reference image and then press X and delete it. Okay, so let's go ahead and make those last little beams right there. So again, I'll press Shift C to make sure I'm in the center there. I'll press Shift A, and then I'm just going to add a cube. Let me bring this cube up, and we will scale it down. And then I'm going to tab into edit mode, bring the whole thing over a little bit, scale it down again. And then I want it to be coming out right in this section right here. If you don't have that, you can kind of make a little area. But I'm just going to have just a little cube coming out there, okay? And then I can press 3 on the number pad, or not on the number pad, just the regular 3, or click on this button right up here, and that'll go to face select, and then I can press G, click with my middle mouse wheel, and just pull that out. And then that's a little too high, so I'll just select the whole thing, G and Z, move it down, and there we go. Okay, now right now it's really sharp, so I want to smooth it out a bit, or smooth out the edges. So I'm gonna actually, with the whole thing selected, press Control B. That'll add that bevel there, and then scroll with your mouse wheel just to make like a few sections, and then just shade that smooth. Okay, so that's good. I just want to do the same thing for the others. So what I can do is add modifier and add a mirror. There we go. So now it's mirrored to the other side. And then we need to make that go back and forth here too. So I'll press Shift D again, R, Z, and 90. And there we go. So now the modeling is finished for the lamp. So I'll just go File and save this again. Now I'm going to go ahead and start doing the materials. Before we do the materials real quick though, I'm going to add the world. So I'm going to click on the world right here and just add in that HDRI that I talked about at the beginning of the tutorial. So over here on this color here on the world, I'm going to click on this yellow color dot here, and then I'll go to environment texture, and then I'm going to click on open. And then here is the HDRI that I'm going to be using. The link will be in the video description if you want to use the same one that I'm using. So I'll just double click on that. And then if I press Z and move up to go to rendered mode, you can see here's the HDRI. And I am doing this in cycles render. I would highly suggest that you do that because it's going to look a lot better. And then the strength here, I think this is actually a little bit too strong. I'm just going to make this like a 0.8. I've just found that it maybe looks a little bit better, maybe even a 0.7. We are going to be adding one light though later to just lighten up our 3D model. Okay, so let's go ahead and do this first. So I'm going to select this. Let's go over to the shading tab, and then I'll just go into rendered mode. I'm going to click on new, and I'll just call this like lamp. Now you can see in my finished model here, I have this really cool look where it almost looks like a polished effect where some of the lamp maybe has been rubbed away, like if it's a dark paint on it or something, or it's just been really polished. Or maybe it's a little bit of rust or something, I don't know, but I think it looks really cool. So to get this effect, I am going to press Shift A. I'm going to search for the geometry node, and this feature doesn't work in Eevee. So this here, if I plug this pointiness value into the base color, you can barely start to see what it's doing. I am going to be using the Node Wrangler add-on. If you don't have that enabled, you can go Edit, Preferences, go to add-ons here and just search for Node Wrangler. Super great add-on. I think you should always use it, so just turn that on. And then you can click on Save Preferences if you want it to always be there in your other Blender projects. Okay, so now with that Node Wrangler selected, I'm just going to press Shift A. I'm going to search for a color ramp because this way we'll be able to actually see what's happening. And then I'm going to be using the Node Wrangler features. One of the Node Wrangler features, what you do is you hold down Control and Shift and then click on a node, and that will allow you to preview what that node is doing. So you can see if you zoom in here, this is what the pointiness value is doing. It's adding some lighter areas on the outside and then some darker areas on the inside. It's really hard to see, but I'll show you what it does. If we click on this here on the color ramp and drag it in, it's going to add more contrast. So now you can see it's really dark, and if I pull this out, it's going to make the lighter areas lighter. So just make it super contrasty, but make it mostly black, and then just add a little tiny area where it's white. And then this white here, I'm going to make this kind of a gold, tan, orangey, yellow kind of color. Something like that. Maybe just a little bit more orangey. And then make it a little bit brighter so that we can see it a bit better. So now if we Control Shift and click back on the principled, that's going to be contributing to the color. And I want to make this really shiny. So the roughness here, I'm going to change this down to like a 0.3, maybe even a little bit less if you want, just to make that really shiny. And now you can see it's really starting to look cool. Okay, so that material is done now. So I'm going to do a similar material to these different objects right here. What I'm going to do is just click on this, and then this lamp stand, I can just click and drag and drop this onto another material. And then I'm going to press Z and move down to go to the material preview. And then you can see that now these have the same material. Now for this material, I don't want it to have this kind of polished look. So I'll just press this button and that'll duplicate the material. I'll call it lamp, just like lamp 2 maybe. And then for this material, I'll just click and let go, and that'll remove that. And then this I'll just make fully black, but it's still really shiny. So now if I go into rendered mode, you can see looks pretty similar, but it's just black. So now this lamp 2, I can just drag this and drop the color onto these different things. So drop it onto this one and this one. Also go up here and drop it onto this, and also this one right here and this. So now we just have a few more materials to make. The light bulb material, I'm going to go ahead and do this. So I'll click on new, just call it like light or light bulb, whatever you want to do. Now you could go ahead and add like a glass material if you wanted to, or maybe you want to have the light bulb turned off. You could just add a glass material, but I want to just make it really bright, and I don't want to have like shading issues and have like a bunch of fireflies in the scene and stuff. And when the light bulb's turned on, it's super white and bright, and you can't even really see the glass. So what I'm going to do is delete this with X. When I have it selected, I'll press Shift A. I'm going to search for an emission, and that's going to be shining out light. So I'll plug the emission into the surface. The strength here, I want to make it really strong, so I'm going to do something like 300, so it's really bright. And then the color here, I think light bulbs are usually a little bit yellowish. It's not super strong, because that'll make it like super yellow. I'll just make it subtle, so it's mostly white, but it just has a little bit of that yellowy color. Okay, so we just have 2 more materials left. We need to make the cloth right here, and then also the cloth right here. So let's do this cloth first. So I'm just gonna select this, click on new. I'm just gonna call it like cloth. So what I'm gonna do is click on this principled and press Control Shift T, and that'll bring up this file browser, and you can see it says principled texture setup. This is kind of an automatic way to set up the principled texture. So I can just go in here. This is the downloaded texture that I downloaded. I'm just going to be using the color, and then I'm going to hold down Shift. I'm going to select the normal and the roughness. So I'm just going to be using these 3. Oh, not the displacement, just the, so I need to hold down Control and then click on the color, normal, and roughness. There we go. So I'm just going to be using those 3, and then I'll click on Principled Texture Setup. And you can see that it does all the work for us. So if you're a beginner, more of a beginner in Blender, and you haven't really learned how to properly set up materials using texture maps, then I would definitely suggest that you go learn that. But for someone like me, I do this like probably every day, and so I know what to do. Like I know to make this non-color, I know to add the normal map, and I know what this does. So it speeds up my workflow, and I don't have to manually set this up every time. But again, if you're a beginner, I think that you should learn the fundamentals of why we're setting it up like this. Okay, so you can see here, if I go into rendered mode, you can't really see the material, and that's because we haven't UV unwrapped it yet. So I'm going to tab into edit mode, and I'll press right here to go to vertex select, and I'll alt click on this, hold down Shift, alt click on this, keep holding down Shift. Well, if you want to move around, you're going to have to let go of the Shift key, and then hold down Shift and Alt, click on this, and then one more, Shift and Alt, and click on this. And why I'm selecting these specifically is because the seams aren't going to be visible because the frame object is on top of them. Okay, so with these selected, I'm going to press Control E, and then I'm going to click on Mark Seam, and that'll add those seams right there. And then I'll double tap A to select everything, and I'll press U and unwrap. So now it's unwrapped. If we go to rendered mode, you can see there is our material. And let me just go over to the UV editor so that you can see what it's doing. Here is our UV unwrapped mesh. That looks pretty good. The scale, I'm actually going to change the scale in the shading tab. So what I'm going to do is just zoom in here and just take a look at it. And then this mapping right here is the scale down here. I can click, hold down my mouse, drag down, and that'll select all the values, and I can just move back and forth, and that'll change the scale. If you want to put in a specific number, you can click, drag down, and then let go, and then you can change it to a number like maybe 4. And now if I zoom in here, you can see there's the texture. So I think somewhere around 4 probably looks good, but change it to your liking. And then let's add this same material to the frame. So I'll just click here to drop the color on, and just drop it onto all the frame pieces. Okay, now you can see that it's really white right now, and that doesn't look very good. So I want to make it kind of a yellowish, kind of tannish color. So I'll press Shift A. I'm going to search for a color ramp. Okay, we'll drop the color ramp right in between the base color and the principled, and then I can Control Shift and click on the color ramp and we can see what it's doing. And then basically the only thing that I want to change is this white color. I'm gonna bring it down, make it a bit darker, and also make it that kind of color, that kind of yellowish, tannish kind of color. Control Shift and click back on this, and you can see that's looking a lot better. That might be a little too strong actually. But you can see using this principled BSDF, there's no light coming through this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a translucency to make it so that some of the light is coming through that cloth. So I'll press Shift A, and I'm going to search for a translucent BSDF, just drop it right here. And then the translucency, I want to mix it with the principled. So I'll press Shift A here, and I'm going to search for a mix shader. And then this mix shader I'll drop here. And then I'll plug the translucent BSDF into this. So now we're mixing these two together. So you can see it's already having light come through, but I still want to add that texture. So this color here, I'll plug it up to the color on the translucent, and then the bump map, or the normal map, I'll plug that into the normal there too, so that it has some normal. And now you can see that's looking really nice. Now this factor here, if I turn this all the way down, that's just the principled, and if I turn this all the way up, that's just the translucent. So I want it to be somewhere in the middle. I think slightly on the side of more principled is better, but you can make it however you want, maybe around 0.35 or 0.5 in the middle, somewhere around there. Now this here, the frame, the cloth that's around the frame, I don't want that to be translucent because obviously it's a hard frame, so there's probably like a little bit of wood inside with like the cloth around it or something like that. So what I'm going to do is click on one of these pieces of the frame, and then click on this button with the little two pieces of paper. That's going to duplicate it. I'm going to call it like cloth frame. And then this is a different material now. So this translucent, I'll delete it. This mix shader, I'll delete it with X. Plug this back up, and then there we go. Now we're back to the original material. And then I want this to be darker because you can see here on the finished model, it is darker, and I definitely think that looks better. So what you can do is just click on this and then make it darker. Just make it a few chunks darker, maybe a little bit more saturated. Okay, so now that that's darker, I'm just going to go along here and drop the cloth frame onto the other one. So drop it on. And there we go. So now they're all the cloth frame and they don't have any translucency. Okay, so now we need to UV unwrap this. I'm just going to go over to the UV editing to do this. So you can see if I tried to UV unwrap this right now, let me just do that to show you. U unwrap. You can see that if I went into rendered mode, there would be UV unwrapped right here, but then right here, it would be all stretched. And why this is happening is because you can see in edit mode, the solidify modifier is just bringing this out. So it doesn't actually have any mesh to UV unwrap. So I'm going to click back on here, and then the solidify modifier, I need to tab back into object mode. With my mouse over this, I'm going to press Control A, and that'll apply that. And then I need to do that for all the others. So I'll click on this, Control A, click on this, Control A. So now the solidify modifier is applied. So if I tap into edit mode, you can see it's still using the subsurf, but it now has actual geometry for that. So I am going to select this, hold down Shift, select this, and then also hold down Shift and select this. And now with all these selected, I'm going to tab into edit mode all at once, double tap A to make sure they're all selected, and then I will press U, and I'm just going to do the Smart UV Project, and just click on OK. And now if I go into rendered mode, you can see it's pretty nicely putting the cloth on the frame there. Now I do want to add another light to shine on the object just because right now it looks a little bit dull, so I'm just going to add another light coming from this side. So I'll press Shift A. I'm going to add a plane because I like to add those plane lights. I think they're really cool. I'll just bring this up, rotate it. Let's save our file again. Don't want to forget that. And then move this over here. Okay, maybe scale it up a little bit like that. And then on the materials down here, I can click on New. And then on this, I'm going to click here. I'm going to go to emission right there. And then this, I want to be a little bit yellow tinted because I think it looks kind of nice. And then just bring up the brightness there. There we go. That's really nice. And I really like this because you can see that little shine right there. And there's also some light coming on it right there. Okay, so now let's actually go and render this out. So I'll press Shift A. Let's add a camera. I'm going to press Control Alt number pad 0. That'll bring the camera to where we are. And then I can just press G, double tap R, and just move this around to where I want. And then right now the camera is like 1920 by 1080, so it's going this way, but that wouldn't really work for our lamp. I'd have to move way far out. So what I'm going to do is go over here, and then on the resolution, I can just drag this up and make it so that now it's up and down. And then just move this around so that it's pointed at the lamp. And then if you want to make the background transparent, let me just zoom in here. What you can do if you want to make the background transparent is go over here to this render settings, go down, and then on the film, you can just click on that transparent right there. And I really like that rim light right there from the HDRI, that looks so cool. And then the light from there. So that looks pretty awesome. I actually want to maybe move it over there. So I'll press Control Alt 0. There we go. So that I can kind of see that blue light coming from behind there. All right, super awesome. Let's do a few render settings to speed up the render. Now the sampling here for this kind of scene, I like to turn this up really high because to see all those details right in there, to see that detail of the cloth, it's pretty hard to see if it's noisy. So I like to turn this up really high to something like even like 400. If your computer can't handle this, or if it's just going to take way too long to render, then you're just gonna need to render it at lower, like maybe 100 or something. And then on the light paths here, I'm gonna turn the total to 2, diffuse to 2, and glossy to 2. And then all the other light paths right here, I can turn these all to 0. And what this is Blender calculating different light paths. So I think that these should all be set to 2 so that it at least can calculate a little bit more to make it a bit more realistic. But all these other things right here, like transparency, transmission, Blender doesn't need to calculate all of these, so I can just turn these all off. Even the filter gloss and these reflective and refractive, these can all be turned off, and that'll speed up render times because Blender won't have to calculate those. Okay, go ahead and go File and Save again just to make sure this is saved, and then you can press F12 to render out the image. And there we go, it's finished rendering. So now I want to add a denoise to denoise this because this is pretty grainy. So what I'm going to do is just scroll over here and hop over to the compositor. I'll click on Use Nodes, and then right in here, I'm just going to add a denoise node. So I'll press Shift A, search for a denoise node, just drop it right there. And then I can Control and Shift and click on this to preview it. And then it should denoise that, and there it is in the background. So to save this image, I'm just going to go back to the rendering tab here. And then this is the render result. I don't want to see this. I want to see what the viewer node was seeing in the compositor. So I'm going to click on this, click on viewer node, and that way it's going to show the denoised image. So this is one of the problems of the denoise node. If you have little tiny textures and a little bit of details, I think it thinks that this is a noise, and so it kind of smooths it out here. So this doesn't really look the best. What I would do is I would turn this render sampling way higher, so like 600, maybe even 1,000 samples, so that this looks a lot nicer. But depending on what computer you have, that might take a long time to render. So before we save this, I want to show you what to do if you want to make a white background. Let's just go back over to the compositing. If you want to make a white background or just a color in the background, what you can do is in between this and this, you can press Shift A, search for an alpha over node, drop that in there, and then let's just wait for it to load up. Okay, so you can see that the white is in the way. We need to bring this down to the bottom one, and then the white is going to go in the background. So now you can see if I press V, that'll zoom out the background. Now I can just make this any color I want, but I just want to turn this to white. So I'll just go to the RGB, drag these all up, and there it's white. So now I can go back to the rendering tab, and it's already set to viewer node. I can just go image and click on save as. Final render, and I'll just save that image. So there we go. There's the finished lamp tutorial. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I hope it was helpful. Again, if you want to get the project files, they're going to be available on my Gumroad and Patreon, and the links will be in the video description for that. And that'll also help to support me. But thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in a future tutorial.